with apologies. I just got a confirmation from her that she wasn't going to be able to make it today.
Okay, let me go ahead and introduce the meeting and get roll call, and then we'll come back to you in a second. So today is Tuesday, February 13th, 2024. It is 3:32. What's that?
Oh, wait, but it should pick up on that mic.
Is it going through here?
No, so you all are gonna wanna keep your computer audio off. And then Craig, are we able to get like our audio through the sound system?
Yeah, just speak into the mic.
Maybe Jim could do a test and see if he can hear us, because he's on.
So this is just like a very directional, so I can maybe move that mic closer to me.
Okay, if I move it closer to me, I've got logistical other issues.
Yeah, we were just hot micing a minute ago, so.
Okay, is that working?
I can hear everything.
All right, Judith, are you able to hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, the recorder is running, so it's now 3:33 p.m. Today is February 13th, 2024. This is a work session. Roll call.
Linda Sosa?
Jennifer Davila.
Ann Leppanen.
Erin, manager.
So good afternoon. How are you, Judith?
Good. I'm good. The sun is shining, which is a nice break. Yeah, no, I'm good.
So the purpose of the work session is to kind of do a check-in with the strategic planners on our strategic plan that we passed in 2023. So I'm not really sure how we want to do this. Judith, do you want to take the lead? And I know that you gathered some information.
So I'm not sure I know how to share the screen here.
If you could
There.
sit down, oh, good.
Okay, I'm not liking this somehow.
Do you see the box with a little arrow in it?
I do, and that's what I'm at, but what I'm not, oh, maybe that's what I want.
It'll be
This
your
is what I
choice of
want.
just one
Here we
photo
go.
of the entire screen. Perfect.
Can you see the screen now?
Yes, we can.
So I think when we had a quick meeting several weeks ago now to think about how we wanted to talk about this. And congratulations to Britt and Jen on your election. Nice to have, some new faces and hopefully, and it looks from the responses to the plan, some really excitement about getting engaged in these things. So it's nice to have that. We thought we would do a brief overview of the process, take a look at the strategic initiatives and major goals pretty quickly. And then I took the planned activities and the update that you all completed and just kind of condensed that into the three strategic initiative areas. And then I took so that's another cluster, and then a set of the revised priorities, potential champions, and maybe some hints about metrics and tracking. And then, we conclude with some action points and next steps. So that's what I had in mind for today. I think we have a lot to discuss particularly in terms of planned activities and who is going to be involved in the various initiatives. Not unlike last year, or not unlike our experience with you, there are people who are really deeply involved in a number of things. And there are 3 or 4 areas that don't have any champions signed up. So we'll have a chance to talk about that as we move through that. How does that sound as an agenda?
Sounds good.
And I trust everybody will just pipe in as they can. I think, Britt, I'm going to do this for you just quickly. Everyone else was sort of involved in this process, but we used a 3-phase process for developing the plan. The first was an assessment phase, and that was a kickoff meeting to see where we were and how we wanted to work together and to meet a planning committee or a design committee. And from that, we went out to do a group of interviews, a survey, and a couple of focus group discussions. And that gave us a lot of information that enabled pretty much a SWOT analysis and some preliminary themes for the strategy. The next activity was, or the next phase was a strategy creation that culminated in a strategic session with a whole bunch of people who were the design team and some key others. As you can see, I can't remember the exact number, but we probably had 15 to 20, maybe 24 people in the session. And the purpose of that was to finalize and approve the strategic initiatives for the plan. The people who had volunteered to take the lead in those different initiatives sort of also convened some groups who would work with them to flesh those things out into the objectives and activities and a bit of a time frame that you see in the plan document. And then we brought everybody back together so everyone could look at what everyone else had done. We developed a final document, and then Ann and Erin took it to the council for approval. So that's where we were in June of last year. Any questions? Okay, so the three initiatives, the three major initiatives that came out were sustainable town government, improved livability, community culture and connections, and mindful growth. And there were 3 or 4 goals in each of those initiatives, and they're listed here. I know that you've all read through the plan, so I'm not going to read through them again, just kind of to tweak our memories a little bit. So the 2023 progress. In the area of sustainable town government, can you all see this?
Yes.
Okay, I'm not going to read through. I mean, you all put this here, but you got a lot of things done. You got staff hired. You approved funding for different things. You continued to. You implemented speed limits, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There were lots of things that got started here. In all of these areas, community health and safety, organizational effectiveness, the elected leadership, and the only area that didn't actually have a clear result was natural resources management, but there are also natural resources management in one of the other activities. Improved livability, community and cultural connections. There was that you've established a community spot for exchange and reuse and recycle of goods. There was a note that reminded people that the laundromat had functioned as a kind of thrift store for a long time. And then you've made progress in identifying and removing invasive plant species with a grant, including a grant from White Mesa Mill. Dark sky certification has moved forward. The lights have been replaced on the community center, and you've got an MOU underway with the Bears Ears Partnership, and community gardens are in progress and underway. Active transportation plan was approved, and somebody told me to take this A out, and I let that one slip. And solar panels are on the old school. In terms of culture events and welcoming community, in progress is the funding for the fire suppression system at the CCC. You've got an ongoing role in membership and tenure described for the design review committee for the CCC. Successfully got a bundle of money for additional renovations, and the AmeriCorps group tore out the ceiling in preparation for fire suppression and helped remove the carpet. All these things have happened since June, and there were lots of things that happened beyond things in this plan. On the mindful growth side, affordable housing, that you were in the countywide, regional, and state discussions on affordable housing. A housing assessment is in play through the San Juan County, but this was tongue in cheek, I'm sure, but who doesn't know that Bluff has a housing shortage? In the area of expanding and diversifying economic opportunities, you've partnered with Bike Utah, UDOT on the plan for the hard surface pathway, supported off-season festivals, such as the Balloon Festival, Dark Sky Parties in winter, and Sosa students in last December, which kept you warm and busy, or busy and warm. In the natural resources, this is an area that there's a lot of what's in here came from a long comment that someone had written, and I just pulled out the pieces and put them where I thought they needed to be. West Park has a new irrigation system. These things I'm not really sure. I'm not sure why these are here, but this is where the comments were. The renovations at the community center are almost completed. Fire Mesa Kitchen was inspected and passed. The community center gym will be repainted. The pavilion outdoor will be cleaned and retaped. And those might just be things that we hold on to as we move to the priorities for next year. So did I miss anything important in any of these areas?
I can't think of anything. Anyone?
Okay, well, I'm going to move on to the meatier stuff then. I think that what we want to take a look at, and the priorities were proposed when you went into the Google Doc, and the assembled, the collected comments are all in that document, because the Google Documents just keeps adding comments, and that becomes the newest version. So you can see everything in there. But I think what we want to focus on this afternoon are the revised priorities for 2024, the roles and the various initiatives of the council members, the mayor, town manager, and staff, and a little bit about metrics and tracking. The third area, and this is something you're going to have to do, I think maybe after the meeting, is deciding when each of those activities will take place. So you'll see that for each of the initiatives, this is again a summary of what you had given to me, the goal areas, the priority activities for 2024, people who stepped up, volunteered to champion, and sometimes volunteered others. I think that as we go through this, what's really important is to get a sense of, or to be thinking about, who is the real owner of this activity. Yeah, we said champion, but in some cases, this might need a name to really be pushing it. So in the area of community health and safety, there were 4 priority activities that were listed. One is a robust reward and recognition program for the emergency services. And no one signed up to champion that, but no one said we need to take that off the list. So that's something to think about. Finalizing the Bluff Emergency Operations Plan, developing the materials that will provide an overview of the major town ordinances, and hiring contract services for a mediator. Any questions about those activities, or thoughts, or more volunteers? And I think I think you could be involved in this if you didn't want to be the champion or the lead, and maybe we'll come back to this whole list after we've gone through it once. Because I know, Jen, I'm not sure you had a chance to really weigh in, because I was surprised that I didn't see your name anywhere. Am I putting you on the spot?
No, you're not, but I did not make a lot of public comments. I didn't make any public comments. I have taken a look at it.
There's still
Okay.
time. Don't worry. We'll sign you up for something.
Well, yes, it is not too late. And as you can see, a lot of these names and positions recycle. And one of the questions that we have to ask, is whether or not that's if that will work for everybody. Mm-hmm. I guess the next category is organizational effectiveness. And there were, I shifted a few of these around, but there was talking about hiring a note taker and a bookkeeper. And I added CCC manager after I looked at all of the assignments that were made in the plan for the CCC manager. And Erin had said that that's in process, but it hasn't been done yet. So I just put it in there as an activity that needed to be included in the hiring. And then evaluating the feasibility of the public works manager and department. And I think someone noted that this might be connected to some of the conversations that are going on about the waterworks. Develop an organizational chart, creating a lists for the town of Bluff Waterworks merger that includes all the tasks and responsibilities and pre-work. Formalizing internal SOPs and a credit card processing system. These, a lot of these are, many of these could be, a quick win. Some of them will take a little more time. But are there any questions or comments about those? There are more to come in this strategic initiative. Okay. All right, then this is the rest of organizational effectiveness. These may be some of the longer plans, but identify funding for construction under the active transportation plan, a management plan for the CCC, and a capital improvements plan for the town. In terms of elected leadership, there were quarterly board reports, connect with the council sessions, and a handbook. And I guess this is kind of a roles and responsibilities administrative how-to that you have in mind, Erin?
Yes, so we definitely do rely on the Utah League of Cities and Towns powers and duties book, but I think that there are some town-specific policies that would be nice to have them all in one place for our elected officials.
That would definitely be helpful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are those policies not online?
Not our internal policies, so resolutions and ordinances are all online, and there are links to Muni Docs and Muni Code, but we don't really have, they're just things that will pass, and our, the travel policy wouldn't be on Muni Code, it would just be an internal document. Or at least for now, I guess.
And Judith, I don't think I did this, but I intended to sign up on the sole source aquifer.
Okay, that's good. Now I could take that little yellow thing out of there.
Is that something you need help with, Ann? Because I didn't sign up because I wasn't quite sure what it was.
Yeah, that would be good, that would be good.
Okay, you can sign me up to help.
All
as
right,
well.
so Britt's in too.
Okay. Britt, I think you've got a lot of work. And we're just trusting you to give until it feels good.
Me too.
I think there's
Yeah.
overlap, though,
Yes.
with your career choices, so that is great.
Sorry?
Oh, just there's good overlap with Britt's professional career that will lend himself to that particular task.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's good. That's a gift.
Yes.
It's a great asset for the council. So as we, this is the end of that first chunk of sustainable town government. Is there anything that you think is missing? I mean, these emerged as the priorities, but is there something that you think doesn't have enough attention?
I think we could clone Erin.
That, we specifically said that was not a strategic item. No.
Priority act, is that natural resources management?
No, I will say that looking at the list and the names alongside, it is critical that the town identify a project manager for the CCC, because at present, it's taking probably about 90% of my time. So if we can reallocate that time into these other long-term important items, that would be really helpful. So I'm glad that one made it on there, and thank you for catching that, Judith, that one was not specifically listed as a hire, but it is a hire. And it would be CCC manager, but we're gonna call it the project manager for the CCC PM manager, yeah, so.
And you're referring to the one that's funded through the EPA.
Correct, yes, so we already have funding for it, well, almost have funding for it if we sign a contract.
We're within days of funding.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Isn't that fun when you've been awarded something but you haven't seen the money yet?
Yeah.
I think that's my job.
Yeah. Okay, so if we move on to the next one, improved livability, community culture, and connections. This had four categories, I think. And so in the area of parks, recreation, and sustainability, and the first thing was defining a parks and recreation committee. And Brett and Linda have agreed to tackle that. And then creating a parks and recreation master plan, which goes along with that committee work. The dark sky certification, completing that, we have the, these must all be people who are working on it currently.
Yeah.
And then, once that's all finished, I think that then you've got the task of preparing the communication and education materials that you want to spread out around the town. And this is, Luanne and Ann are excusing themselves from the communication and education materials, which I think is fine. They have other jobs coming up. This public Wi-Fi bathrooms came up as one thing, but most of the conversation was around the bathrooms. So Britt, when you signed up for this, there were comments about the bathrooms. I don't know if you were signing up for both.
I'm signing up for both, yeah.
Pardon?
Britt, I can help with that as well.
Awesome, thank you.
Who was that? Was that you, Ann?
Jen.
Erin, Jen?
And Jen, did you want to be on the Parks and Rec committee?
Sure, since I kind of already am on the Parks and Rec committee.
Where else did you volunteer?
I'm already on the Parks and Rec committee.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay. And then and then operating and maintenance costs for these will be integrated into the town budget so that you can pay for them. And then the final one in this area is creating a noise ordinance, and that's going to be led by the planning and zoning. It's a commission, is that right?
Yes.
Any additions, subtractions, questions about this list?
Were we good with the noise ordinance? I know that one had stalled and then stopped and then stalled, but is that?
Which
something
one?
The noise ordinance.
Did the council want to move forward with that one?
I was waiting to really even deal with that until P&Z comes back with their list of priorities for 2024. And I think they were working on that.
They were working on it for a while, but that's part of what they want. For their priorities, they want guidance from the council on what we want them to work on.
I want to know what they want to work on first. I would prefer that they do it the other way, but I'd say leave it in there for right now, Judith.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Active transportation, develop phased implementation targets for the plan, and then develop a funding and resource strategy for the parts of the plan that haven't been funded in the grant. Is that good?
Yes.
And then this cultural events and welcoming community has a lot of empty champion spaces in it. There was a question about one of the activities and I remember this conversation from working with that group, was around reviewing the vision statement for the town of Bluff. And one of the comments in the feedback who reviewed the plan just now was, should we convene a conversation that includes planning and zoning?
Well, and I'm wondering too, when we went through the strategic planning process, like, we did work on a vision and a mission that was going to kind of guide the council's, actions. I don't know if that was like so specific to the plan as much as just, you know, there is a vision, there is a mission statement. We also have items part of the general plan. So I don't remember with this particular item, whether it was supposed to make sure that like the general plan and the vision mission of this plan aligned, or if we can say like, hey, we have accomplished that, because we definitely spent time on it in strategic planning. But can someone, folks who are involved in strategic planning, do you remember where that particular item came from and whether we still needed to iron it out more?
It came from Molly.
Remind me who Molly is.
Molly Schmidt, I would imagine that's who that would have been, and she's.
Yeah, because it was Molly and like, didn't Dan lead that?
Dan did.
Dan led that one too. So I'm just curious, not to like convolute things, I'm just curious if that particular action item was resolved as we did the strategic planning process, or if that committee wanted to make sure that we had alignment throughout all of our different committees and town documents, I guess.
You know, if memory serves, and you know there is a person, there's someone who is, I can't remember her name, I can see her so clearly, and her husband, but I can't, their names will not come into this, their names aren't coming up to match their faces. But I think that she had a lot of expertise in teaching diversity, equity, and inclusion before we stopped doing that at universities. And I think that there were some questions about whether or not the vision statement could have been more specific. I mean, you talk about, you know, an inclusive, it's a very inclusive, equitable, you know, it has a lot about inclusion and equity and respect in it. So I think it's concise. I think we liked the vision statement, but I think when we went out, the conversation got to the point where it was suggested that maybe you wanted just to take a look at it. The comment about including planning and zoning was during this current review. The include planning and zoning came out of the comments that were made on the Google Doc.
Gotcha, okay.
So I think you could go either way with it. You could say that the vision statement that was in the plan was approved by the council and let it hold, and it does have a lot of space in it, I think, for interpretation and, you know, and definition and establishing benchmarks. Or you could review it.
I think that's what I would do, is hold it where it is until we have a problem.
Yeah.
'Cause we've got-
And so does somebody want to own this?
We have enough other things that we're all working on that maybe we don't need to redo this part, is what I'm thinking.
Can we write in there, see page 4 of the plan? And
I don't know that we need it. I mean, I think that as
Julie and Judith led us in a very, very detailed plan, you know, vision and mission activity. And so I say we say, see page 4 of the plan, and I don't know, is it like a reevaluate when you do your next strategic planning, making sure that we're still on the same page?
I like that.
I'm going to try to find the exact words. So the vision that's stated in the plan, Bluff is an inclusive community that values quality of life for all while honoring and protecting our natural resources. So if you're, and you know, and I suppose that we could say that was also I think it's a pretty broad vision statement, and I think that the plan's been approved by the council, so go with this as you. What would you, we can take it out. It's not like you don't have 27 other priorities.
I would just move that over to, we accomplished it in 2023, add it as a win for us. And if anyone has questions or if folks listening in disagree with that assessment, then we can re-add it. But I think that's a great job, team.
Yeah.
Thanks for the guidance, Julie and Judith.
Especially since we will have more than this check-in. We can always add it back if we get public comment, but for right now, I think it's out.
Okay,
A
all
win.
right. Okay, I'm not going to move this physically right now because I'm afraid I'll get confused. But I'll just make a note to self here. Then there was another piece about having physical and digital public bulletin boards. And there were a lot of things that could go onto those public bulletin boards, announcements, town regulations, camping guides, ways to demonstrate respect for the land, information about, where to go. So that was one of the things that was listed as something for this year. And no one signed up for it. It was interesting, as I looked at this with the big yellow, I said, well, maybe these just aren't priorities right now.
I think that
Which
that's
is-
really important, but I really suck at social media, so I don't, I'm really reluctant to champion it myself.
Well, we have
It should
other visitor centers in town and things that are doing a lot of that for us.
Yeah, but
And
I
businesses.
think this came up because there were a lot of people who were, I think it came up because there were a lot of people who felt like they weren't being reached through town email, and, it's not the visitor center's jobs to inform the community as to what the town's doing. I think if I remember correctly, in the plan, one of them was if we had just a simple Facebook page where a lot of people could see communication in a different format, in addition to having our town email list and everything like that. It was just a way to reach a broader audience and inform them. And I remember that discussion, and I think that it would be valid. Like I said, I'm like pretty much a Facebook stalker. I don't really do a lot of, I don't think I'm the person to champion that, but I think that I think it's a valuable.
On our
Thank
website has a lot of information, that
It
one's good.
does, but it doesn't reach the same audience, and that's what if I remember correctly, that's what came up in the strategic plan, was that, yes, that information is available, but people really don't go check that. Whereas if you're on your Facebook every day and it pops up that, oh, there's a town da-da-da-da invite, you're reaching a different audience.
So it's less like a bulletin board, more like a communications strategy or plan?
Well, kind of like a bulletin board too, but it's just an electronic bulletin board as opposed to,
But I
we
think
go
if we're-
post.
if we're doing it out on social media, popping it up, running around town, putting things up, I just think like that becomes
Right.
more than just like bulletin board, like.
So, for example, if I could throw out something that recently happened, we had a very large attendance for the San Juan County Housing Assessment thing. And I think that was largely in response to the fact that there was a Facebook blast over, San Juan County's Facebook page blasted that out quite readily. So a lot more people knew about it and said, oh, I'm curious about that, I'm gonna go show up at that meeting. And so that's just an example of how I think that presence works differently. Because the same information was available on the website. And if it had only been on the website, we would have had 6 people at that meeting as opposed to the
Well-
30 some odd that we did, I think.
But it went out in different ways too. It went out through the San Juan Record and went out
Right.
through posters and
Right,
advertisements.
right.
I mean, I don't disagree with you about the Facebook, but that's a bigger discussion. I mean, that opens a whole can of other
Right,
issues on social media.
Yeah.
So.
That's why I say I'm not particularly I think it's an important thing. I'm not ready to champion it yet.
I'm willing to jump into the physical and digital public because there's so much that ties to the legal aspect of it and ethical aspect of whether you do it or not.
Well, I'm willing to work on it with you.
Oh, there, see, there, we've got it, okay.
Okay, but
fine.
we need somebody else too, who's more,
Oh.
who's more,
We'll find someone.
Fluid.
Yeah, we're not going to, the most fluid person here is probably
Yeah,
Erin,
we
and
don't-
we're not.
Yeah, we don't want,
We-
we don't
Erin-
want
If you
to
wanna
tie
go
Erin
ahead
down
and
to it.
remove my name from a lot, no, I'm just kidding. But no, like, clearly, this is an administrative function, that long-term, we need to set it up to be sustainable. So it can't just be a council member working on it
Right.
for 6 months. So yes, it's gonna fall into the administrative arm. So put my name down in terms of figuring out how you make it a sustainable, like, I would hate to do all this work, we do all the legal, whatever, to adhere to Utah Public Notice website, all the stuff, grandma, and then we use it for 2 months and then say, screw it. So, yeah, put my name next to it, but
But I
let's take
think
my
it's-
name off something else.
I see it as a much smaller project in that the first question is, will this council support
Yeah.
social media? Because we were not supporting it in the previous council. So we can nail a yes or a no and then decide how far we want to go with it. If it's a yes, we want to support it, then how do we do it? And then that becomes a bigger task.
Yeah.
Okay.
And social media, there are really big problems with it.
Right.
Gamma is one, I mean, we've had experience from trainings that we've done with social media
Right,
and Facebook.
right.
So I'm really hesitant.
It's something that, it's just a different way to reach more of the public that I don't think we necessarily reach as we currently are.
And I think it's worth the discussion.
Yeah, and I just think, like, wading into it, it's gonna, like, you're gonna have to come up with a communication strategy for everything, like you're covering now, like, so these guys, like she, and like Erin said, to keep it going.
Yeah, and I think it's important to understand, like, what would go out there.
Right,
Like, is it
exactly.
every single communique, is it a specific type, is it, weekly reminders about meetings, or is it truly like a comprehensive communication plan that we're, noticing all these, oh, look at what we've done over at the CCC, here are pictures of the renovations to keep the public informed, or is it a, hey, we have a meeting coming up, this is what's on the agenda? There are very different ways that we can utilize this tool, so.
I mean, you can throw my name on it as well, like, if it's, like, I'm with Jen, I'm terrible on Facebook, but I have to, from work, I have to deal with com stuff.
Okay.
Constant.
Well, and we do look at, I do look at it daily, whether I want to or not.
And it gets a
I
lot of
do.
people do like a blaming yard sale and
Yeah,
stuff, and
yeah.
it does.
So this might be a good time for me to quickly interject. We can go to about 4:30.
4:30.
We have removed the executive session from the agenda, so we should be able to do our meeting in an hour and be done at 5:30. So Judith, we still have some time here to have you work with us.
Okay, we have a couple more. We just have a couple more to get through, and then, I think this was a big chunk, figuring out who is going to champion or lead this. I think the other piece about the metrics, we might need to do a second pass through because of because we're just clarifying the activities, and the champions. But the next thing here was posting interpretive signs for the I don't know how to spell archaeological, apparently, sites.
EA.
EA, it's sure enough, it went away.
And that's,
Um,
I mean, doing that is practically right out of my work job description. I've done probably 50 of these all across the county, so I can do this much. I don't know that I need much help. If anybody would like to, they can, but.
I think we should volunteer Brant for this part, because it seems like that's something that he's very interested in doing.
Brent, are you serious? Is that serious?
Kinda.
Hart or Murray?
Huh?
Hart or Murray?
Murray.
Okay, I can't remember his last name, but should I put this down? Or should we-
I was just kind of tongue in cheek, I don't.
Okay, if
He
Britt
kinda
thinks he
doesn't
needs him,
like signs.
he can go get him.
I mean, and we could put Sarah down on that as well, because she does do all the time.
Yeah.
So,
I think
yeah, S. Burak could go on there.
Yeah, so you could
I
add
think-
Sarah Burak.
Here?
Yeah.
And then maybe somebody like Debbie Westfall or somebody to
Yep.
know what we want to attract people to and what we
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was the first person I was gonna call.
Safe sites.
Bird bill.
This next one seems to be related to the bigger question that we had in the one about the digital, physical and digital bulletin boards, information resources readily available at strategic places around town. And this kind of gets to your question, Britt, about, a broader communication strategy. So maybe we put this with the same group, or,
Yeah, I think that makes sense to just duplicate it.
Yeah.
I think it falls in the same.
okay, moving right along. I'll take those colors out. Now, this is where I decided you needed to hire the CCC manager. So all of these activities, these priority activities that were listed for the CCC, were assigned to the project manager. So, and in a couple of cases with community input. So there's the procurement, engineering, renovation services, procuring the services, developing the guidelines for use and programming of the CCC, reporting the progress on renovations to stakeholders, and then getting community feedback on the use, accessibility, and programming in the CCC.
Do we want
So-
to include the DRC on any of those? Because I feel like at least maybe in the two middle, the DRC would be a good.
And here and on the communicating to the
Yeah.
community. What about getting community feedback? Is that something that's in their scope, or you want to leave this right now just with the project manager and doing outreach to the community?
I would just leave it like
I
it
would
is.
leave it like that too.
Yeah, I think the project manager is going to champion it, and then we'll have supporting actors throughout the entire process.
Great. Okay, we're moving on to mindful growth. This had three goal areas. So the first was affordable housing, and this was, develop a housing task force. The champions here were listed as planning and zoning with a question mark, and then the council and Britt. I don't know if that's a particular, I don't know if you've got a task. Do you have a task? Anyway, and then that task force would identify best practices and with planning and zoning would analyze current zoning code and land use ordinances to see what could be done where. Does that still hold? What do you want to do about this first one? Who should be championing the task force, forming the task force? Do you need a task force?
So, as someone who helped lead this particular initiative area, I think affordable housing kept coming up every single time we talked about, strategically what the town needs. So in terms of the short-term actions, putting together that task force who would really kind of focus on it was critical. What I am curious about is we know that the county is doing an affordable housing, or I should say a housing assessment. I almost wonder if we see what their recommendations are before we delve in. I think we need something Bluff specific. I'm not saying we don't. I'm curious to see what their deliverables are going to look like for us versus countywide, because we're very different from the county, we know that. Based on their findings, I wonder the rate at which we should put together a task force, or if they have something really robust, perhaps this is something that can, I don't want to say move back on our priority list, but we can collaborate with other people to kind of get this moving, as opposed to just saying, hey, here's a whole nother committee that we're going to need to chair. However, if the council really does agree, this is such an important issue that we should create a committee this year, you should create a committee this year to get working on it.
I think if we create one more committee, I'm going to shoot to myself.
Okay,
I
Ann's
mean,
not on the committee.
I'm really, I'm serious, and the reason is I'm looking forward to the next year of all of us being maxed out on the CCC and the grants, and all of the things that come with grants. And should the Active Transportation Advisory Committee be awarded that grant, we are gonna be so overwhelmed. And until we get a project manager, I would say, yes, this is a priority, but let's push it back a little bit before we form another task force. Or we've got to have a task force for the change in the subdivisions. We have an advisory committee. We are going to have one for the CCC.
I wonder, as opposed to a task force, if this is something, Britt, like you're genuinely really excited about. This is an area I also have a lot of, I am genuinely very interested in. I wonder if we can say, hey, you as an individual or us as individuals, this is something we're gonna keep an eye on. We'll keep the council appraised of what's going on at the state, regional, local levels, and then collaboratively think about, you know, when is this a good time to bring it to a formal function?
And
Is
just maybe
that-
making sure that somebody, you know, I mean, I like your idea of the county developing this, but just making sure that we have a seat at the table, you know, I mean, we kind of already do that with the Economic Development Office, board that Linda sits on, and the Tourism Tax Advisory Board, which Linda and I both sit on. So, you know, I'm just making sure that we have a face and they know that we're interested in it, I think is as beneficial at this point in time as developing our own task force.
And we are wedged into that plan. It was,
Yeah.
you know, when Elaine Gisler didn't include us initially, we got in it, and Erin and I have been having contact with the planners, so I think we're going to be getting that information with no problem.
So if you're open to that, Britt, like, I think it's just something that we keep an eye on. I don't want it to be misconstrued. Like, we understand what a problem this is. There's a reason it made it into our strategic plan as a full goal, but perhaps we kind of keep the council apprised of the situation.
With the idea that we will make one if needed.
Yeah.
Or-
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, part of what I thought the task, like, part of the use of it, is that it would be like ongoing conversation about something that people clearly have a problem with and are looking for, even just this opportune space to vocalize it, you know? So, yeah, I'm down for doing that as long as we.
Yeah, we
put
know
it
we
on the
need a
back
task
burner,
force
and-
at
yeah,
some,
yeah,
absolutely.
You know, that we could be ready when the plan comes out.
Okay.
I mean, maybe I'm a cynic, I'm just not expecting a ton of help.
Yeah.
Like, so, I mean, that'd be great, but, I mean, we don't, you know.
Cynic or
Well-
realist? Yeah, okay.
So maybe what we do is put in here that the action is, the activity is deciding or, you know, deciding on whether or not you want a task force.
Or timing of task force, can we put it that way, like, when,
Did you say timing?
yeah.
And then this is something that would be,
TBD.
this is something that would be the council, or it would be Britt and Erin?
I guess me and you. Yeah.
I list all three, because like, it does take the council to create those committees, but, you know, we're the recommending individuals, I guess.
Okay. And then these other things about identifying best practices and analyzing the zoning code and land use ordinances, those are still things that the task force and the, I'll switch the order of these two when I redo this just now. Okay, so that's good. That's a good change. And then expanding and diversifying economic opportunities. So this was assist the Bluff City Historical Preservation Association with the development of the Bluff River Trail access points with parking. This is Britt, Luanne, and the Active Transportation Committee.
You could add me onto that one, Jen.
And then developing plans for improving the current town activities. I didn't know, Erin, you were in this group, so I don't know how this is different or similar, is that you have a capital improvement plan under sustainable government?
Yes, I think that goes directly, a direct tie-in.
So we should make this as part of?
Yeah, I think that's great. The other thing I want to call out to Judith, just while you're typing, is so I think when we were putting together the plan, the different teams may have had different interpretations of like short-term versus long-term, because we have our actions broken up into short-term versus long-term. I think my particular groups were kind of operating like short-term is within the next 18 months, year to 18 months. Whereas like long-term is gonna be our 3 to 5, 7-year plan. And so especially as we go through some of these, I'm just looking down, I think this is a good time to talk about, are those actually short-term or are they longer-term, knowing that we have a lot of priorities already laid out, that we've already talked about today.
And actually my plan was to try to get these, if we got the activities and the people, and then if we want to kind of go back and really see things that won't happen this year. But then part of the homework or the next step, I think, would be for those of you who are championing activities to really take a look at where these can fall realistically. And we won't have time to do that today, but I think that's the next step. And that will weed out some of the ambiguity. I mean, I think that you could make a more concrete decision now than you could have a year ago or 8 months ago. Does that make sense?
It does, thank you.
Okay. So this, I can't remember who we had in the other plan, but I'm in the first one, but we could put the same people on this as on the sustainable government.
Yes.
And I'll do this scene before I post this on Google Docs. Review the zoning code and add desirable business types that are not already zoned in commercial areas. That's either I missed something or that didn't get a champion.
That would be P and Z.
I was gonna say, can we put P and Z on that?
That's one of the things they have on their list, is to like do an industrial zone and whatnot.
The next one was developing a year-round calendar of events, expanding the season. And the champions for this were business owners of Bluff and the Bluff Community Foundation.
You could add me on there, even though I'm already a business owner. Happy to be a
Yes.
liaison through the two.
Yeah, I was just signing people up. I'm like, this feels like it fits perfectly. But yes, liaison is helpful.
Can I get to this last little square? And then the final one is, Britt had said that he would share all the water quality and quality studies with the public, and that there are several years available or planning periods, which I think is fascinating. I can't even imagine anything, even though I'm beyond 50 now, I can't imagine anything that with a 50-year projection. So that takes care of that one. And then the second one is this model waterwise landscaping at town-owned properties. Didn't have a champion.
Project manager for the CCC. No?
No, I
That's
think
where
that-
that's where it's going to come up with the gardens.
Well, and
with-
here too, I mean, I think that Tina's plan has already taken a lot of that into account.
This was there was a comment about there was the irrigation that was set up already earlier in the plan. Is that what Tina was working on?
No.
That is the end of the tasks. I mean, are you feeling more or less overwhelmed than you were at the beginning? Or does this seem manageable within, between now and the end of the year? That's really what we're looking at.
Does solar fit into the natural resources management?
Solar, how, what?
Like producing solar in trade of using coal and regular electricity?
I don't think that was part of I didn't see that in the strategy, but,
What was that one?
how is that something that you're proposing to add?
I think solar, okay, so renewable energy feasibility was talked
Oh, that's
about.
someplace. No, that is someplace.
Yeah, it's under section 5 for improved livability. It was not necessarily a short-term item. It was in our longer term.
Yes.
But if we think, if we think we need to expedite it, we might need to expedite it.
Well, I think it's kind of timely right now because there are some pretty big grants that are coming down the pipeline, and I think maybe that's what Lou is referring to, is just making sure that people who are applying for these, or people who are using these grants really understand what all they entail and making sure they're used to the best of our knowledge, and maybe exploring some ways that we can make these grants more beneficial to the whole community rather than LA.
So if we put this is actually in the sustainable town government one, which is a good place. I mean, it says, evaluate renewable energy zoning as the activity. Do we want to put solar specifically, or are you talking, this is things these are replacements for coal and something else?
Well, just regular electricity uses resources
Mm-hmm.
is why I was thinking natural resource management, but
Mm-hmm. As actually, so this is, I'm hoping you can still see this, but on the, so this is natural resources management under sustainable town government, and it seems like this is where it kind of belongs. That you would be evaluating renewable energy zoning, use of solar.
right,
So-
community-wide and like at the all these Cs, guys, we're gonna have to figure this out, triple C maybe. But the old school, we need to look at using it there where we're doing the remodels. So I think it kind of probably comes in several places. But
We had focused on it more long-term for both goals 4 and 5, but I think it makes sense to reevaluate and move it up if the timing makes sense with everything else going on. I will highlight that the plan was more specifically regarding town resources and town facilities. So if there is going to be a readjustment to also focus on the community and businesses and residents, then we should make that highlight of change.
So does this capture it, use of solar community-wide, including residences and businesses?
And maybe we don't need to put that on our town list, but it seems like it's kind of in the flow of things. And then the building, the remodel of the CCC, it seems like it's part of that. I mean, it seems like it's something we'll be doing,
Yeah.
but I don't know where it fits in the plan.
So just something that we maybe as a group decide that, it needs to be on the radar.
Yeah. Yeah, because we had 2025, which is not that far away, so.
Right.
Might as well.
What I was also hearing was something about wanting to do some kind of education or coordination, I don't know, community building around the available grants that were coming up for solar. or other forms of renewables?
Because
And I wasn't sure if you were saying that, you want to help people understand what the grant requirements are, and you kind of want to make sure that they get taken advantage of and used in ways that kind of coordinate with each other if they can. Was that reading too much into it?
I mean, that would be nice. But I don't know how much capacity we all have
I
to do
mean,
that, but.
if we were to do something like that, I would say like ask like Bluff Community Foundation or somebody to do that. That's a perfect NGO thing to do.
Yeah,
Reach out
that
to the
would be good.
community.
Put them down
And, I
on.
mean, since it's just informing about credits and grants and things like that.
Right, and just, yeah, and just, I mean, well, Lou and I had a off-stage conversation about a grant that she and I are both working on right now, and she said, but that you have to get the supply, or, I mean, it has to be approved that Rocky Mountain Power will accept the power back before, and you don't want somebody to go through all of these processes and get the whole project in and done, and then, oh, sorry, you don't qualify.
And that's part of why the town, where we could probably help with the town, because there might be grants or something that the town could apply for to beef up those facilities and whatnot to make it to where everybody could put it in. So, anyway.
Well, the biggest need that the town has would be the CCC at this point, and I think that kind of fits in the overall plan that we've got for the project manager, looking at that.
But it'll be.
I think solar is either,
Yeah.
It'll be another big draw.
it's on the
so
CC, it's either on,
It is on the CCC, I remember seeing it.
okay, all right. So, okay, we're 3 minutes over.
No,
Okay, we said we wanted to finalize the champions, and, maybe the next thing is that those of you who are in these groups could just identify if you want to have one point person. I think that you need to put the deadlines or the time periods in there so I laid out 3 things at the quarters, so that you can get a sense of when you would be finishing those activities, and that's the way I would look at it. I would look at it as completion. And then what is the next, when do we want to get together again to review this? Just to check in and see where you are. Okay, my job is to post this on, did Google Drive work for everybody? If I have everybody's address now, I can just send it to you directly and I won't have to have Erin do the intermediary. So if I post this on Google Drive, you could all just go in and set your deadlines.
Can you send us a Google Drive tutorial?
We can
I
chat.
think, I'll see if I can find you a link. I'm still learning a lot about this myself. I've learned more about Google Drive this week and last week than I had, I knew I had a lot to learn. So I'll post this on Google Drive and then you can put your deadlines in there.
thanks.
And we can set and then if we do we want to set a next review date? I think we had talked about, did we talk about June?
We had mentioned June just because of the budget cycle, and like, if
Mhm.
we knew we didn't have funding, or knew we did have funding for particular projects, we could adhere to that or write it in still.
Mhm.
June seems right around the corner.
Why don't we get a date in June, and then with the idea that we'll review whether we need to push it back out?
Mhm.
Because I think there are a lot of things that are in here that are tied to the funding and the work on the CCC, on the Cooperative Cultural Center, and some things that we might not be really ready for. So what, shall we,
4th or the 11th,
of June?
those are Tuesdays.
How about June 11th? At this point.
Okay, let's just set it tentatively June 11th. And is this the good time, 3:30?
I think 3:30 is a good time, and I'll just keep the agenda light if we go forward, and if not, we'll start at 4.
Okay. Any other parting, was this helpful? I mean, are you
I think
excited about moving this forward?
I think
Anything else?
excited is one word.
I think it helps us stay on task.
Yeah,
does.
I like it to do list, so.
It's kind of setting some expectations that we do need to actually be paying attention to the strategic plan and
Help to stay focused and
Yeah.
not, and to see what's already getting accomplished and what's getting worked on.
Okay, good. And then Erin, let me know, I just got permission to edit this document that I was saying was as set up as a tracker, and I'll send that to you when I get these posted. Okay, well, thank you, and
Judith, thank you. And I think the way this is going to work is if I can get a motion to adjourn this, take 5 minutes and go, give everybody a quick break, and then we'll come back in for our meeting.
Okay, great.
So, a motion?
Motion to adjourn this one, and we'll come back to our regular public meeting.
It's 4:37.
I second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, I'm stopping the recorder, and we're going to go off for a while.
Thank you, Judith.
all right, bye for now.
You're welcome to stay.